I'm Brittany.
And I'm Heather.
Welcome to Okayest Moms, the podcast.
A place to be more than just mom.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Okayest Moms, the podcast. Brittany here.
And Heather, how are you?
I'm doing great. This Saturday recording schedule is just great.
Who did that?
Whose fault is that?
This episode, I'm so excited to bring back this cultural conversation series. We were lucky enough to have Uzma from Mommy While Muslim join us. And she's telling us all about Ramadan and sharing part of what it's like to mommy while Muslim. And we were so excited to have her join us. And you guys are just going to love this conversation.
So we'll jump into the interview with Uzma after this quick break. When is the last time you replaced your bra? How about your underwear? If you're anything like us, it's probably been longer than you can remember. We get it, bras are expensive, bodies and sizes change, and the search for comfortable options can be never ending.
Enter Harper Wilde. Harper Wilde is a female-founded company that offers affordable and comfortable bras and underwear in extended sizing ranging from extra small to 4XL. They offer wireless and underwire bra styles, as well as underwear options ranging from everyday, no-show waist panties to cheeky luxe thongs, so there's something for everyone.
Harper Wilde also offers a bra recycling program. Each purchase comes with a free mailer to fill up with old bras and underwear. All you have to do is ship it back, and Harper Wilde handles the rest.
You deserve to remember the last time you bought yourself a new bra. Check out the current limited color drops and the full product line at the link in our show notes. Okayest Moms listeners can get 15% off their orders with code GOWILD Okayest Moms. That's WILD, W-I-L-D-E.
When I tell you that Brittany and I were beyond excited to bring on House of Wise as a podcast sponsor, it's a bit of an understatement. We have both tried various CBD products over the years to little success. Some flat out didn't work, and almost all of them taste pretty gross. I thought House of Wise would be another well-intentioned brand that fell flat, but I couldn't have been more wrong.
House of Wise is a luxury CBD brand that offers gummies specifically formulated to reduce stress, promote better sleep, increase enjoyment during sex, and improve your workouts. Each full-spectrum CBD product is originally formulated, specially designed, and paired with additional, thoughtfully selected active ingredients to help women make the most of each day and give more intention and purpose to their daily routine.
My favorite are the sleep gummies. I have the hardest time falling asleep and staying asleep the older I get. And these have the right amount of CBD, so I'm nice and relaxed and just enough melatonin to help me fall asleep without waking up to that groggy feeling or giving me crazy dreams.
And I am obsessed with the stress gummies. They take the edge off after a long day of balancing all the things, as us moms tend to do.
Not only does House of Wise offer great products, they're also a thoughtful, intentional, women-owned company. House of Wise has an ongoing partnership with the Last Prisoner Project, which is dedicated to decriminalizing cannabis.
If you've been thinking about trying CBD, this is your sign to try House of Wise. Go to okayestmoms.com/wise.
Hi, everyone. I'm Megan.
And I'm Wendy.
And we're the co-hosts of Long Story Short, the podcast.
We're real-life best friends, and we're your best friends on the internet.
Every Thursday, we discuss the topics that are on our minds, from midlife to parenting teens and pop culture. We keep it real with a lot of laughs and a lot of humility.
We promise we don't have all the answers.
We would love for you to join our community of listeners. Listen anywhere you get podcasts.
You can also find us on social media. We're at Megan and Wendy everywhere, and our website, meganandwendy.com.
Hi, Uzma. Thank you so much for coming on our show.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and mommying while Muslim?
Yeah. So I am a mom of 4. I have 3 boys and a girl. They're between 8 and 14 years old. I had them kind of fast and furious and then took a little bit of a break. I'm a physician. I own my own private practice out in Phoenix, Arizona. And I'm originally from Texas because I lived there for like the first 25 years of my life. So I will always say I'm from Texas because people always like to ask me where I'm from. And then when I say Texas, well, where are you really from? So that's kind of what bred the podcast, because Zeba actually had an unfortunate incident happen with TSA, and her oldest son when he was about 14, and there were no resources for her to go to. So she called me and was like, what do I do? Like, how do I deal with this trauma that my son's gone through now? And what resources are out there? And we didn't find anything good, like not even really articles, but she is very white passing. Her children are not. And so Zeba is of mixed heritage. And so she had never gone through this. Myself, I've been body strip searched at the airport right after 9/11 happened. So minus the cavities, they didn't touch my cavities. But I was like, wait a minute, like, why weren't you traveling with ID? Because flying while Muslim is like an actual hashtag. So she didn't know. And she said, well, would you like to talk about this on a podcast? And I said, sure. What's a podcast? And so then she was like, well, let me do some research and we'll figure it out. And in the meantime, I started listening to podcasts. There was two, one of which was a Christian evangelical minister. And she's amazing. Everybody knows her, Jen Hatmaker. And I was like, everything she's saying is perfect. Muslim women need to hear this, but I know Muslim women will get turned off on some of the, more Christian verbology, and they'll throw it out. Like they throw the baby out with the bathwater often, right? People will do that. So I said, we need to be the Muslim Jen Hatmakers. And then I called up Zeba. It'd been about a year after we'd had the initial discussion. And I said, that podcast thing, we need to do it now, like now, yesterday. And then I forced her into it and we made it happen. That's how Mommy While Muslim was born.
Oh, I love that. So let's dive into Ramadan. Can you start by telling us why you celebrate Ramadan and its cultural significance?
Ramadan it's the 9th lunar month on the Islamic calendar. So like Jews, Muslims follow a lunar calendar. For us, I believe, let me double check, but the lunar calendar year, because Islam as the youngest religion is, I think it's 1421 for Muslims. No, I'm wrong. 1444. I'm a little behind. 1444 on the lunar calendar. And there's no corrective factor, right? So in the Jewish lunar calendar, there's a correction factor added. Muslims don't have that. So what happens is Ramadan falls 10 days earlier every year. And now it is falling in March. The last time it was in March, no joke, I was 15 years old. So it took a full 30 years for it to come back. And I'm happy to age myself, but it took a full 30 years to come back into March. Doing it in the summer was way hard. We had to do that for a long, long time, many, many years. But basically Muslims will fast from sunrise to sunset. They have an injunction in their scripture, which is called the Quran, to fast during the month of Ramadan. It is considered purification. It is considered a way to honor God. It was done by the prophets before Muhammad. And it's also to gain empathy with people who don't have the option of not eating from sunrise to sunset, because that is their everyday reality. Muslims will do it because in the process of purification, it's kind of like a reset for the year. Like, okay, I wasn't spiritually cleansed or doing enough worship or purification during the year. I'm going to do it in Ramadan. And during that sunrise to sunset period, they're withholding from food, water, sex, if they smoke, cigarettes, any like as needed medication. If you have medical conditions, you're exempt. If you're pregnant, you're exempt. If you're children, you're exempt. If you're traveling, you're exempt. So there's quite a few exemptions. However, it is mandatory for anybody post-puberty and onwards to fast.
And are those exemptions, are those more of a modern change, or have those always been
That
in
has
place?
always been there. Yeah. And that's actually in their scripture, what the exceptions are. So they know that way. If you're
wow.
sick. So you just have to, because it's an obligatory fast, you have to make them up, any that you miss. Women, when they're menstruating, do not have to fast. Obviously, you're hemorrhaging. If you're doing your regular daily duties and on top of that, you're not hydrating, well, you're going to pass out, if not get dizzy and have palpitations and all that good stuff. So as a physician, I know what can happen. I also argue with other physicians who are like, it's so unhealthy and you can't do it. And I was like, dude, Muslims invented intermittent fasting like 1,500 years ago. What are you talking about?
I was going to say, that's like the new popular diet fad right now. Like,
Exactly. So we're like, I did intermittent fasting for like 3 years. I loved it because I was like, this is so easy. You can drink. Come on. What's your problem? We can have bone broth. We can have tea. We can have water. Shut up. All these people who are dizzy intermittent fasting. I'm like, y'all are just rookies. So
I've been training for this all your
children can do
life.
it safely too. Yeah. We've been doing this all our lives. So yeah, we know what's up.
So typically cultural celebrations are centered around food, but obviously Ramadan's slightly different in that fasting is a main component. Are there any special traditional meals that are served each night when you do break the fast?
Yeah. No, you would think that a fasting month would have nothing to do with food. It has everything to do with food in
No,
every
I would
single
expect
culture
it too. Yeah.
Yeah, because what happens is a lot of times our moms, and you can talk to Somali moms, you can talk to Sudani moms, you can talk to Pakistani moms, you can talk to Indonesian moms, anybody who is Muslim, they usually save those really hard, difficult recipes for Ramadan because you're thinking about food all day. You try not to, but it happens, right? And it's like, oh, what am I going to eat tonight? And the moms just, they create these fantastic spreads. So historically, traditionally, in the tradition of Muhammad, Muslims are encouraged to break their fast with dates and water. Then they go pray their evening prayer and that would be at sunset. And then they come back for their evening meal. And that evening meal will have your mom's favorite recipes. And again, because Islam is so, it's practiced in almost every continent, almost every country, the foods are going to be so different. So, I mean, I can share what my mom traditionally had, and it was like 6 or 7 items. That was to open the fast. And then we had dinner. So I never, ever lost weight in Ramadan. I never did until I started intermittent fasting. And then I knew how to do it right and not keep eating until sunrise. So that was the only time I lost weight. But yeah, 5 pounds at least. So my mom would have samosas, pakoras, and samosas. Everybody knows what that is now. That's like the pastry stuffed with meat in my house. Some people do it vegetarian with potatoes and carrots and peas. A pakora is a batter made of gram flour. You add vegetables in it and you deep fry the heck out of that. So lots of cholesterol issues in our South Asian community because we like everything deep fried during Ramadan. There would always be some version of a vegetable, but it would have to be fried in a batter. And that's how you would eat it. And sometimes there would be sweets accompanying that too. So yeah, quite a bit of food is significant to us. But our masjid, which is our house of worship, it hosts a free dinner every night of Ramadan. So the whole community comes together and it would be like everybody in your church getting together for a meal for 30 nights. And that's what we do. And, it's crazy. The kids run around. It's a ginormous mess, but every night it's free during Ramadan. So we invite our friends who are non-Muslim as well to experience. The iftar is the meal that breaks the fast, or the dates. And then the meal is just dinner. And we like to show them and share that with them, because the more food you share, the more brownie points. Ramadan is the time to stack your brownie points. So I always tell the kids in high school, when you got to sell candy bars or you got to sell Girl Scout cookies, you go to the masjid at sunset and you stand out there. Everybody's hungry. They will buy everything. And if they know it's for a good cause, they're trying to rack up brownie points with God. What they believe is because they're fasting, God will be more amenable to their good deeds. So they'll do more of them and try to be more charitable during Ramadan. So it's a really good time to hit up Muslims during that period.
Well, this is good news for the Girl Scouts that Ramadan is getting earlier and earlier.
Yes, very good
Girl
news.
Scout cookie season is like February to March.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, in our side, as part of the country, it's a little bit earlier. So we start earlier in February. 16th.
We're in California. We started, like mid-February.
Yeah. You're right then. I thought it was at January at some point. I remember.
I feel like I've been talking about it.
I know.
Months,
so I have
it's hard to remember when it starts and
I
stops.
have a cadet who just sold over 1,000 boxes. So it's been,
Wow. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's been a fun season
that's
for us too. And she
incredible.
parked right outside of the masjid. And she sold her cookies every Friday, because Friday is a Muslim high holy day where they make congregational prayer and all the men are required to go. So my daughter just parked her table outside and looked really cute. She was born in this masjid. So the whole community knows her.
Oh my gosh.
And they would just give her money and not even take the cookies. Be like, baby girl, you take them home and you eat them. So yeah,
oh my gosh, that's amazing. Well, good for her.
Businesswoman, I like it.
I know. Yeah.
So during Ramadan, are there any aspects of life that you're encouraged to limit at all?
Anger. You do need to control your anger. Bad language. I have a potty mouth. Zeba is the cleaner half of momming while Muslim, which is weird because she does not dress like me at all. Like I said, she's very white passing. People a lot of times will badmouth Muslims in front of her because she doesn't look Muslim. But I'm the potty mouth. She is very clean. So I have to clean up my act during Ramadan. I also have a hot temper, so I have to curb that. Sexual activity. So even if people are dating, which is not allowed in Islam, and if they are sexually active premaritally, those people will not do it during Ramadan. So they're what we call Ramadan Muslims. We love them, because it's better than not fasting. So whatever your lifestyle is, you will drop all of that extracurricular, extra Islam, like outside of Islam stuff, and come back to just the bare essentials. So I would say that's the only thing. And in terms of increasing good deeds, there's more volunteerism, there's more charitable acts, and then there's more worship in Ramadan. So Muslims will finish their entire scripture. They're encouraged to finish their entire scripture during the month of Ramadan. It's not a requirement, but you'll find a lot of Muslims doing it, especially those of South Asian descent. And then going to the masjid every night for the night prayer. After that, they stand for another hour, hour and a half, and they pray a voluntary prayer. And during that voluntary prayer, the imam is reciting the entire scripture. So there's 30 sections of the scripture. So each night, one section is being recited.
Wow.
So you don't get a lot of sleep. You get a lot of food. You don't get a lot of
busy
sleep.
time.
It's a very busy time. Yeah. Yeah.
So, what would be a respectful way for a non-Muslim family to honor Ramadan?
I think ask questions. I think that's always respectful, to find out more, because it'll probably end up with you getting an invite to an iftar, which I don't know. I'm a busy mom, so any free dinners I get invited to, I'm like, oh, good. I don't have to cook tonight. That would be great. I think maybe asking your local masjid what events are planned, especially if you're involved in a faith community as well. Maybe there can be like an interfaith iftar. Like in our community, we have a lot of those. So it's really nice to see all the religions kind of coming together and celebrating each other's or honoring each other's traditions in that way.
One thing that's always struck me, I was kind of sort of raised Catholic and not practicing anymore. But the more, and so I'm clearly not an expert in Christianity or Catholicism, but the more I learn about other religions, they all seem to have a very similar thread going through them. As you're kind of describing Ramadan, it kind of made me think of Lent and how people who are not always practicing will randomly participate in Lent and give up things. And
you know who's Catholic by the ash, right? On their forehead. It's like, oh, I didn't even know you're Catholic.
Exactly. And they're like, oh, I just went because it was Ash Wednesday. I never go any other time, like at Christmas.
Yeah.
But I mean, they all have very similar threads between them.
Yeah. And I mean, for good reason. Like Islam is also an Abrahamic tradition and traces its lineage to Father Abraham, right? And if you know the hymn from Sunday school, Father Abraham had many sons. So Muslims derive their heritage from the son Ishmael, and Jews and Christians from Isaac. They're both equally important in the Muslim tradition, but I think Ishmael kind of gets forgotten in the traditions before him, before Islam. But yeah, the threads are there, I think, because, if you're a person of faith, I think we believe that God has always been there and he's always been sending his messages. So, through time, there's going to be bits and pieces that sound similar. The stories of Moses and Noah and Solomon and David, all of those exist in Muslim scripture. They may sound a little bit different because Muslims don't have as much detail as like we do in Genesis. Definitely not anything like the New Testament, but it's just very, very similar. And I speak on a speakers bureau. It's the Islamic Speakers Bureau of Arizona, and we get invited out to schools. And one of the programs that we offer is the Abrahamic panel. So you have a Jew, a Christian, and a Muslim, which sounds like the beginning of a joke, but we get invited to the classrooms and we give like a 7-minute spiel on our religions, which is great. Summarizing your religion in 7 minutes, by the way. And then the kids in the back of the room, I mean, these are middle schoolers, and they'll be like, but you guys are saying the same thing. And we're like, bingo. If you take nothing else away, take that away, because we are more alike than different.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh, I love that you guys do that. And what a powerful thing to learn in middle school. I mean, can you imagine if we all had that connection in middle school? Maybe.
I know. Especially because I feel like a lot of the otherism starts at about 8th grade, which is why I think all 8th graders should be freeze dried and like undone at 17. But I remember that the bullying that I experienced in middle school, it was at the hands of like 13 and 14-year-old boys. Because, growing up in Texas, racism is a thing. I never really experienced it from adults as much as I did from my peers. And
they're getting it from adults. And
yeah. So I feel like, especially the Speakers Bureau that I volunteer with, their belief is if we get the kids early, the parents will come around, because I mean, truth be told, a lot of adults have made up their mind and they're not going to change it. They've decided what they've decided. Maybe since they were middle schoolers, they have been taught in this way to otherize people. So let's go in early and talk to the kids. So we do get the parents who are really fearful that we're trying to convert their children or proselytize to their children. We're like, no, that's actually against the law in this country. It violates their First Amendment right.
That's actually what you Christians are typically trying to do, but okay.
When y'all pull them out of school so that they don't learn creationism, So I've had parents come and sit through, and they've been so appreciative at the end and come up and thanked me. And these were the same parents that like maybe reamed the teachers before my talk was going to happen. Like, what are you doing? Blah, blah, blah. But, it's slowly building these bridges that we can overcome some of that otherism and just desire to categorize people and keep them there and not enter those categories because ours is so safe.
Oh, I love that so much. Can we take a segue here and talk about common misconceptions that you encounter as a Muslim mom?
As a Muslim mom, oh, I love it. Have you ever been talked loudly to by other people, by men, when they're mansplaining to you?
Oh,
That
just
happens a lot. Yeah, mansplaining. We all get mansplaining, but getting womansplained too. So women do this too, where everybody raises their voice to try to speak English to you. And it's like, my minor was in English. My grammar is better than yours. I swear. So that happens. I will often get, why are Muslim women oppressed? That is, when I go out and I do my Women in Islam talk for the Speakers Bureau as well, a common question is, why are women so oppressed? And I'm like, I just introduced myself as a physician who owns her own private practice, who has 4 kids, who grew up in Texas, who, left home to go to medical school and do all of that. And you're asking me this question. Did you not hear my intro? Did you come in late? And they'll be like, I was like, did you think somebody's waiting outside? Like they drove me here because I don't know how to drive. So it's always interesting to think that, Muslim women are oppressed because, if you ask our husbands, they're so whipped, and they'll be like, no, help me. Like, I need help because, it's a handful. And we are, because I think at least Muslim American women, there's a nice division. There's like the Black Muslims who have been here since the beginning. They're the first Muslims in America, and there's a good 20% of them that make up Muslims in America. And then there's 20% that make up those of us who came after 1965, the Immigration Act, and our parents came over, and we saw that first generation make its mistakes, do its things. A lot of those immigrants came from South Asia, where there is a lot of patriarchal traditions, where Muslims are influenced a lot by other religions that are super misogynistic about women, and they absorbed some of that culture, not the religion, that's certainly not Islam that they were practicing. And we saw our mothers, our aunts, our like aunties in the masjid suffering. And so we internalized that and absorbed Western feminism, which is counter to Muslim feminism, because there is an Islamic form of feminism, which is not contingent with white Western feminism. We absorbed both of those. And it's kind of like a trauma reaction where we're extra mean to our husbands. And when now there's all these divorces and stuff. So we're trying to curb that and fix that with the upsurge of Muslim mental health professionals that we have right now and counselors. So,
Well, that's relatable.
yeah. Well, good.
So I know you briefly talked about this is kind of why Mommy While Muslim was born. How have you had hard conversations with your children regarding racism
Yeah.
now that you're a mother?
Yeah. So I sheltered my kids a lot. They didn't really watch the news. And then when my son was 7 years old, so in first grade, we're in public school now. We'd left Montessori. Montessori is very safe and very, very insulated. So I get into public school, and, my kids have always been very vocal about their religion. They've been very proud. They were all born in this masjid, and like that culture of the village raises the children. That's how it's always been. So they felt safe saying that I'm Muslim. And one of the kids turned around to my oldest and was like, oh, does that mean you're ISIS? And so my son came home and asked me, what's ISIS? And I was not ready for that conversation, but we had to talk about that and take it a little bit to 9/11. And then through the years, talk a little bit more about 9/11 and how America changed after that happened, and, how it was different when your dad and I were growing up here. But now you're going to deal with this. Like, you are guilty by association, even though you weren't even born when this happened. And so he was just telling me yesterday, I was driving him to soccer camp, and he was like, I understand racism now. And I was like, how do you understand racism? And he was like, well, people will randomly like hit me in the head and be like, 9/11, gee, thanks for that. Or they'll say things like, I think there's some character on some cartoon who's Indian, and they'll make fun of him for that. And I forgot what he said. I think it's the name. And they would like throw something at him and say that. He got bullied by a football player until the football player got expelled. So that was good. But, it's his first year in public high school because he was homeschooled all through middle school. So he's like, I get it now. Like, I understand why that happens. I was like, well, are you going to report it? He's like, no, I'm going to learn to deal with it because you did. And that's not what I wanted for my son or for any of my children. But, it's going to be their reality when they enter the public sphere. My 2 youngest are also homeschooled, so they're also very insulated from that right now.
I'm so sorry. That's awful. And I
I have a lot of hope for the generation that's coming up. Like, I see a lot of good too, but I know that there's still a lot of this and a lot of stuff they're hearing from their parents. And
well, we know in America, at least 50% of kids or 50% of families are still going to continue what we don't want. But, it's their right to stick their head in the sand and, we'll just keep doing what we're doing, which is our best.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. Can you tell our audience where they can find more about you and Mommying While Muslim?
You can go to mommingwhilemuslim.com, all one word.com. That's our website, and you can listen to our podcast right there on the landing page, or you can listen to us on Apple, Stitcher. We dropped Spotify because of Joe Rogan. We didn't want to be on any channel where he is. Amazon Music, anywhere that you listen to podcasts. We're on Instagram. We would love a follow at Momming While Muslim Podcast. Very easy to find. And we're very proud of the content that we put up there because we try to keep it relevant to our series. Every month we have a particular theme and all the posts are related to that. So I think it's very educational for people who want that for themselves.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
If you like what you just heard, and we hope you do, you can find more of us online at www.okayestmoms.com. We're also on all social media platforms, Pinterest, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, at Okayest Moms Blog. Or if you want to, you can send us an email at hey@okayestmoms.com.